Welcome, everybody, to the next edition of the Stay on Course podcast. Today, I'm joined by James Orsini, a seasoned executive leader with more than 35 years of experience serving as president, CEO, COO, and CFO across high growth organizations. After working alongside Gary Vaynerchuk at VaynerX, he is now advising founders and investors through Factorum and J&J Consulting, helping them build the operational and financial structure that requires them to grow and scale with confidence. Welcome, James, to the Stay on Course podcast.
It's good to be back, Julie. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I am so excited to have you back. It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yeah, early on, I remember when you were first dipping your toe into the podcasting arena, and I was one of your early guests.
Yes, and here we are 4 years later.
A lot of water under the bridge. four
Oh my
years.
gosh, four
Sure.
years is a long time, but we're here and we're not quitting. James, before we get started, I ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
Oh, I'm a big pasta guy, and I love my Sunday sauce. I just had it this past Sunday. My wife treated me for Valentine's Day, and there's nothing better. The Italian in me comes out on
I love
Sundays.
that. It's comfort food, really.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, I know it's a process making all the meats and the hours of the sauces brewing on the stove, but there's nothing better for me.
I love that. I love that. And you've been such a supporter of my podcast and everything that I'm doing, so I'm just so thankful for you and thankful to have you back on the show. Today, we're going to talk about small business success because you've been working with small businesses for, I feel like, forever, James.
Yeah, I wrote an article on that just a few days back. I have it on Medium, and I realized that probably the past 7 or 8 years, I've been really focused on small business founders, entrepreneurs. First through my proximity to Gary Vaynerchuk, obviously as a serial entrepreneur, gave me a sort of behind the scenes look to the life of entrepreneurialism. And then I started the Sasha Group for him.
That's
That
amazing.
was 7 or 8 years ago. And then after that, I co-founded a company called Vive, which is VYVE, which is for executive leadership training in the small business arena.
Wow.
And as you mentioned, Factotum, which provides back office outsourced support for small and medium sized businesses.
I love that. So you have a host of experience working with small businesses. Our audience here on the Stay on Course podcast is mostly small business owners. And so, the question of the day is we always talk about ingredients for success on the show, but I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that small business owners face?
I really think now it's staying focused. There's no shortage of ideas. If you're an entrepreneur, you before you execute the first idea, you're already thinking about the second idea.
Mm,
And having a game plan to actually stay focused and bring some of them to fruition before moving on to the next one or when you get big enough, like a Gary, surrounding yourself with people who can do that. He talks about a 10-80-10 rule. He seeds the vision with the first 10%. He hires and trusts people to bring the next 80% to life. And then he circles back in for the last 10% to make sure it's really, on point from what he had planted the seeds for.
wow. Wow. That's so cool. Most
Yeah,
small business owners are not, they're in the weeds right now, James. They're not Gary. So,
this is
um,
right. So, when you're in the weeds, there's no one silver bullet for success there.
yeah.
As you say, there's a lot of ingredients. Some of when it's know when to hire, when to delegate. A lot of the founders that I work with can and want to do everything that's in their company. But I like to say that they squeeze the baby so tight they choke it and they might kill it. So
That's
you got
true.
to know when to release something and move over to the stuff that only you can do as the visionary and founder of the business.
Yeah, there's a shift that needs to happen in that space. The business owner needs to become the leader of their company so they can work on the business and not in the business. And I think that's a real mind shift for leaders, even in corporate America, right? So it's very interesting for me because I have a corporate background and I spent over 25 years working in the corporate space, and I've spent the last 5 years working in the small business space. And the similarities are incredible, to be honest.
Yeah.
There is the only main difference is the risk factor in entrepreneurship is way higher, and it's scarier. It's way scarier. So there are a lot more challenges on the entrepreneurship side. But the point is what I notice is that people don't want to let go of responsibilities, or they don't want to invest the money to hire people to help them. And I say, like, you are going to get stuck or you're going to fail if you don't build a team.
Yeah, and this is true. I mean, look, Gary always says hiring is guessing and firing is knowing, right? So when you're bringing somebody in, you're guessing as to whether or not this individual is going to help bring your vision to pass. And I remember when I was first hired by Gary, he said, "Look, I want you to breathe for the first six weeks. I don't want you coming in and telling me all the shit that I'm doing wrong. I want you to understand my company. I want you to understand my culture." And then after 6 weeks, then you'll advise and counsel on some of what your observation was. And I thought that that was really, really just a smart way of bringing in a senior leader into the mix of what was already a relatively successful company. It was 42 million, a little under 400 people when I got there. We ended last year at 350 million, 2,000 people across 15
Oh
offices
my gosh.
at my retirement. So it's been quite a ride there.
Oh my gosh. And you were really the catalyst there to help grow that business, weren't you?
Well, I had five different roles, four different titles over the 11 years that I was there, and I just I did what he directed me to do. So and you heard all those different changes. So obviously, it's one of those put me in, coach, and where do you need me to play today? So kudos to him for having the vision of what it was that he was trying to create. It was crystal clear in my interview. He was like, "Hey, I want to create a $500 million integrated, independent, international communications company. Can you help me do it?" So
Wow.
he knew what he wanted to get to, and we work backwards from. That's another thing that I do oftentimes with entrepreneurs and founders is I try to work backwards from what's the legacy they want to leave. What is it
Mm-hmm.
that they want to do? Are they building a business that they want their family to thrive in? Are they building a business that they want to sell in 5 or 6 years? Are they building a business to merge it with something else that they've already seen? So how do we work backwards from the end game that they're trying to achieve?
Mm, yeah. And there's a lot of interesting things that I've been figuring out as far as the know, like, and trust factor. And, Gary Vee is just so good at this. He's so good at putting out content. Of course, he has like all these people, right? So Gary, it's so hard to compare yourself to Gary Vaynerchuk because he's got a team of 400. He's got someone following him around all day, I bet,
Mhm.
gathering content and things like that and doing his content. But the message is clear: is that get content out there and show the world who you are and show your authenticity, because it then shortens the time for people to buy
Yeah, and
your.
his motto was always document, don't create, right? So that's why he had people following him around and just kind of shooting footage as he walked through life, and then would sort of chop that up and use it in different ways. But
Yeah.
I think you were on an interesting point about your career in big corporate America. So mine started that way too. I worked for KPMG, and then I worked for Goldman Sachs, and then went on to the marketing world, many of which were big companies like Interbrand, that's owned by Omnicom, or Saatchi, that was owned by Publicis. Um, and now what we're finding is that there are C-suite Fortune 500 executives who want to think more like entrepreneurs, right?
Mm.
Who want to learn about speed, who want to learn about it's okay to fail and learning more from their failures than their successes. So, how do they pivot like that? And vice versa, right? So the entrepreneurs want to learn from the Fortune 500 people about how to delegate, how to scale, how to lean into culture for your next initiative.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of cross pollination of the two. And that's what we've brought together in the Vive community. It is, it's cross pollinating the Fortune 500 executive with the entrepreneur
Oh,
and
that's smart.
founder.
It's smart because you can see that there's lessons to be learned. I mean, it's just so different because they're set up for teams, right? Corporations, they have people. They're stacked with people. So there's no shortage of people to collaborate with, to work on things with. When you're on the other side, the small business side, what I found very interesting is that I'm building power teams, James, on this side of the business, meaning that I'm collaborating with other small business owners to come together to build these power teams to help serve clients, because we're better together, to be honest.
Yeah.
And building teams around executing whatever it is you're doing is really super powerful, especially as a consultant and coach, what I do for people. And then also, I become a lead funnel for a lot of businesses because I have the podcast.
Mhm.
And so, how do we utilize all of our collective skills in these power teams to serve and to even share resources, James, which is interesting.
Well, the building of community in the small business space is very important, right? Which is why business coaches are important. Certain professional development, leadership programs, masterclass
Yeah,
type initiatives where I like to say iron sharpens iron when it rubs up against each other, right? Where you need people like that. I remember uh, when I was CEO of a small publicly traded mobile media company. And we had people in Boise, Idaho. We had people in San Diego. I had a few people in my headquarters in Jersey City, but I came from the hallways of Saatchi where there were hundreds of people, and I remember the loneliness. It was a hard and lonely job as CEO. So I joined something called Vistage. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
yeah, I
where
have.
at least I was meeting with other executives from smaller businesses, and that's where I was bouncing some ideas off of and using that community to hone business plans and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think the community is very important. You got to find a way to invest in that.
It's really important. In fact, we've created a community for small business owners in the Before I Lead program. We meet 3 times a week, James. This program, we meet 3 times a week. We meet for 3 hours. And in those 3 hours, we're working on time management, we're
Mhm.
working on sales and marketing, and we're working on speaking. And so it is a combination of workshops and accountability, and we're doing it together. And I tell people when I talk to them about the idea of joining the program, it's like, don't do this alone. We've
Yeah.
done it already, and we are going to shorten your time for success, and you're not going to be alone, and you're going to be able to tap into the collective knowledge of the community, which is so important.
Yeah. The time management feature is one that I share often with the founders and business leads and entrepreneurs. I'm a big fan of the Eisenhower Matrix, which separates important from urgent in the decision making tree process. Used it early on in my career with the Sasha Group with Gary. Wrote a couple pieces on it in Medium as well. Just to help because there's no shortage of ideas. Now,
Yeah,
now it's the prioritization of them, right? What are we
exactly.
going to do in the first quarter? What are we going to do in the second quarter? What's a nice to have if we get to it in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah,
How is it not just a linear to do list and everything is kind of ticked off the same way? Uh,
yeah.
So that time management is really, really important.
I love that. In the program that we do every Friday, we call it Author My Day system. And we go hour by hour, actually. This one is granular. So we color code our calendar based on what stage we are in our business. So if we're newbies, we have a lot of yellow time on our calendar. And yellow time means hustle. It means lead generation, sales, marketing, like anything that's going to get us business into the door.
Mm.
And so we can see a percentage. And I say, if you're just starting out and you don't have clients yet, it's 80% yellow time. And then as time goes on, we get this thing called green time on our calendar. That's our actual paid hours that we're getting. And then after there's a certain amount of green, if your calendar becomes all green or half green, that's your first chance to hire, your first new hire. So you
Right.
can see inside the calendar when you need to hire people inside of your business. And that is like a huge shift for the business owner to see is that, you know what, you need to look at this time and realize that you cannot do any more. There's no physical possible way for you to take on any more or do anything more. It's time to hire somebody. And usually that first person is an administrative assistant.
Exactly. That we were talking about that with a group that just got $20 million in funding, and now was ready to hire their first C-suite person. They're going to bring this C-suiter in, and they asked Gary for advice, and he gave very similar advice, like, "Hey, the first 100 days, you're going to let the guy breathe. You're going to watch what he's like in your hallways,
Mhm.
uh, and then by day 200, now you're going to know." Did he make it? Is he okay in my company? Am I going to invest in him for continued success, or am I going to have to exit him because he's just an ogre in the hallways and he's crushing culture? You know, we don't talk enough about culture, but that was one of the real keys to the success in the VaynerMedia world. Gary wrote this book, 12 and a half, The Soft Skills of Leadership. Talked
Mm.
about kindness and empathy and gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and that has led to the success of VaynerMedia. He'd rather hire a nice person and teach them the skills than have somebody who's a superstar with the skills but is an ogre in his hallways, right? And there's a measurable success to that, right? The VaynerMedia had at one time a 17% voluntary turnover rate in an industry that averaged more than 35. So we know it was working because the people were staying. They wanted to stay. They wanted to be a part of it longer.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
it's a really hard industry, meaning from what I understand, the hours are crazy in that kind of work that, the clocking out at 4 o'clock doesn't really happen. I think that's why I've seen, some churning and burning in the kind of company that Gary runs. Agency work is what I'm saying, I guess.
yeah. Agency work can be very taxing, but when if you're passionate about what you're doing, then oftentimes the hours just flow by. I watched the team. VaynerMedia had the Super Bowl commercial with William Shatner around the raisin brand for Kellogg's.
I
You
didn't
know,
see that. Oh my
so,
gosh. I want to, okay, I'm going to have to find
look
that.
for that because it was really good. But I mean, the amount of effort that went into the lead up of that, the war room the day of,
Oh gosh.
but you could tell they were just the team was just so happy with what it is that they had produced, and the fact that the New York Times rated it as one of the top five Super Bowl commercials.
Oh,
It was really they got real fruits from their efforts, and I think that's what happens with any hardworking business. Look, my father was in his own business as a plumber, and he'd come home whistling every day, like because it was a hard job. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But he didn't mind doing it. It was his own, and it made him happy, and therefore, he did it. But look, there's ways of working smarter, not harder. Right now, you're
Yeah.
talking about all those AI initiatives and everything that should really help us work smarter.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're a small business owner, you didn't get into it because you didn't want to. You clearly wanted this. And I think that I would think about that a lot because for me, doing the work that I do is very purpose driven. I feel very called to do the work that I do.
Mhm.
And I feel like if I hadn't, like if I was forced into this, I don't think I would have made it, James. I mean, I think the grind of doing the unknown is really, it's hard. It's hard work. It's every day getting up with a smile on your face, even though you don't want to. It's working on the holidays. It's working on the weekends. That's my experience, right? It's you or nobody at this point, and I'm still sort of building my business around that. I do have some team members, but we get into this work because we love it, and we should enjoy every day.
Yeah, and I think what you'll find too is that this small business arena, certainly in the United States, is only going to be expanding. And I say that because uh, if you were in a business where AI is now dictating that role is no longer needed, well, that role is no longer needed anywhere, not just in the company that you're in, because AI has figured that out, right? So
Yeah,
I think there's
yeah,
going to be more people starting their own businesses and opening up their own initiatives.
yeah,
So this small business space that we're in will only be able to grow. This is why I retired from VaynerMedia and launched J&J Consulting along with my wife Joanne. For 40 years, I've been working for somebody else, and it's been great. And I've had a wonderful career. I made a lot of people a lot of money, and they took care of me. And now I just kind of felt like it was time for me to do it on my own for a bit and
yeah.
work with the type of people and the type of businesses that I want to work with at the pace that I want to work at. And so far, it's only been 6 weeks, but so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very rewarding. I call it the phase two, James, but this might be your phase three. I'm not sure. I call this my phase two. Um, and yes, I think that the days of us relying completely on a business, like someone else's business to provide the income for our family is gone. We don't know what's going to happen. I hate to get political, but like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And some of the industries that we had relied on may be crumbling and crashing at this point. And so there's going to be a lot of people out there in the world that need to pivot. And what got you here won't get you there. It's that old Marshall Goldsmith book. And it's true that we need to sort of think of things a little bit differently. I mean, one of the things that I couldn't believe when I got out of corporate is that, I, in my wildest imagination, James, I did not think I was going to work with small business owners. I have to be honest. I didn't. I thought I was going to be a consultant to corporations and do, work for them and just kind of keep projects going and things like that. I didn't really imagine this for myself until I imagined this for myself. And so it just kind of unfolded as I went. And I think that if you're out there listening right now and you're a small business owner, be open to the possibilities of what's coming in because you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? We think and we have this idea that this is going to be what our business looks like, but in 2 years, your business looks completely different. And I think that's what we were talking about before is this ability to learn and pivot so that you can have the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, just being open. You met Andrea Sullivan, who's the CEO of Vive.
Yeah.
Uh, well, we met 20 years ago. I don't know if you know that, but we worked together at Interbrand 20 years ago. She was the chief marketing officer, and I was the chief operating officer at the
Oh,
time.
wow.
And, when it came time to launch Vive in the hallways of VaynerMedia, Gary brought Andrea and I together and said, "Hey, Andrea, you're the big Fortune 500 CMO world, and James is the entrepreneur world, and I want to launch a division that caters to both these worlds, right?"
Mm.
Um, and probably a year into it, Andrea was like, "James, I love your world. I love the energy of the people in your world. I love the happiness that the entrepreneurs have. I love the fact that they're willing to give back to their communities and their people. It's different than my world. I like that world." And then lo and behold, a year after that, we sold Vive to Andrea and her husband. who are now
Oh,
founders, right? So
I
they
didn't
own.
know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So Vibe is out now, out of the hallways of Vandermeer. It still has a technical back. Obviously,
Yeah,
Gary just
yeah.
did a class in January, and he's speaking again in April. But she's now an entrepreneur, an owner of her own business. She took some
That's
of the
amazing. Yeah.
and stood it up. And now I consult to them as you know from J&J Consulting. I am the business coach for the people in Vive, and I'm listed as a co-founder. But I thought it was really interesting how that happened. You know, you talked earlier about concierge and networking and how important that is. You know, 40-year career, I'm still in touch with every boss I ever had. And I say that only because I had to quit every boss that I ever had to go somewhere else. But, you know, this whole 12 and a half kindness, empathy, gratitude, if you have that, you're still in touch with people. You haven't met Bobby Lane yet, who's the CEO of Factotum, but I worked with him 30 years ago.
Oh,
He,
okay.
you know, he was my youngest finance director in a global company that I was global CFO of at that time. You know, so we had a rapport, and he started a new company in London. And he's like, "Hey, James, I've been running it for 6 years, and I want to get it launched in the U.S. And you know, can you help me stand it up?" So in that case, I'm consulting and I'm acting chairman in the U.S. helping him. But again, another relationship, another networking concierge type opportunity where you know we're bringing value. So working with people that you like and know, you know that you want to be around, that you want to see successful, right? I mean, you know, I'm praying for the success of both Vibe and Factotum. You know what I mean? These are I hope these companies do really well when I'm there, obviously, but even when I'm gone.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's so cool. It's so interesting to see the journey of people and how we come full circle. And, talking about the spirit of the entrepreneur, I think the people that you meet on the small business side, they're amazing people. The
Yeah,
the energy, the ability to kind of envision what's possible. I think it's
yeah,
just fantastic.
it is, and you know, and even as they get big, right? So we have a client now that we're just kicking off in Factotum, and it's a $50 million family owned business, you know, and they still see themselves as a small business. $50 million, you know, no
That's
different than
it's a
I
big
guess
business.
dad's wine library at 60 million, right? Still a
Yeah.
small local owned, business in the wine library, but you know, very very similar. So you know, some are just more successful than others.
Yeah, they are. They sure are. James, tell me where our audience can find out more about what you're doing right now and how you can help them.
Yeah, so I am now in my own consulting practice, J&J Consulting Services on LinkedIn. I'm James Orsini on LinkedIn as well. I work both in helping to stand up Vive, VYVE, and that's the social Thrive with Vive is the social handles, and Factotum, Factotum, which is if you look up the word, it's somebody who does everything, and
Oh,
that's what they do for small businesses. It's bookkeeping, tax, fractional CFO stuff. It is human resource, including compliance, recruiting, payroll processing, and it's social media marketing and websites.
wow.
All
Everything.
yeah,
I'm
all
all in one place.
yeah, for you know, I was saying how over the course of my career in the various marketing initiatives that I was in, I probably bought at least 2 dozen service sector companies, many of whom sold to me because the back office was just such a thorn in their side that they didn't want to do it. So they
Yeah.
sold it to me when I was at Interbrand, or they sold it to me when I was at Saatchi. So you do this and let me focus on what I want to do. I don't want to
Yeah.
worry about it. Did payroll get processed on the 15th of the month? You know, so so the thorn in the side stuff is removed with the actual execution. And now I've brought Vive and Factotum together. So if you're a small business leader who's being trained and developed and coached and I tell you, hey, it's time to bring on a fractional CFO, or it's time to have an employee manual, I can now say, and we're going to get that done by Factotum, and I
Yeah.
remain the connective thread between the two.
I love that. That's amazing. Well,
Mhm.
James, before we end today, give us like one or two ingredients for success that you want to speak into the lives of small business owners.
Doing the right thing is always the right thing. All right. So when you're dealing with your employees, when you're dealing with your vendors, when you're dealing with business, integrity matters, and it goes a long way, even when people are not looking. So I encourage those that are starting out. Doing the right thing is always right, and you'll smell when somebody else is not doing the right thing, and it's time to walk away.
I love that. And I know Gary V he always talks about these things, being kind, being nice. And, I'm a big fan of him. So, Gary, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, you'll be surprised at how much content he consumes. So, would not be surprised if he listens in.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're my next guest, Gary. And
Mhm.
I did meet Gary. I got a picture with him, and because I didn't get a chance to interview him last time, I did a whole interview about how he touched my heart with this conversation that he was having about purpose, and
Mm.
he was saying, "I'm talking to you, 50-year-old. You're not done. You're not
Yeah,
done yet. You have plenty of years left."
yeah. It was funny because when I went in to retire with him, yeah, I think he was a little surprised that I was, but it was the goal all along. I said, look, I'm going to be 63 in January. I'm ready to kind of do some stuff on. And he goes, "You're going to still do some stuff though, right?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, no, I am. I'm going to work with Vive. I'm going to work with Facto." He knew both the companies, so he was good with that. But they treated me really really well on the way out after 11 years there.
That's so nice. Well, James, thank you for being on the show again, and thank you for being a guest on the Stand Course podcast.
It's been my pleasure. I hope your audience gets some value.